Hey, what's up everyone? It's Oren Harris here with another video, a follow-up video on accessing superconsciousness. So I talked in the previous video about transparency and the power of transparency and really becoming more transparent and why you would want to do so. I even dropped this idea on everyone of what if the world, everyone in the world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, knew everything you were thinking and feeling. How does that make you feel? Terrified? Free? Relieved? So I want to expand on this idea of transparency in this video. And where I left off in the previous video, I was talking about privacy. And basically I said there's no such thing as privacy. On the internal plane of consciousness, because we are all consciousness, we're all energy, and all information is actually energy, it's frequency. On the internal plane of consciousness, there's no such thing as privacy. All information, all ideas, all of the ideas that we hold sacred, near and dear, our thoughts that we hold to ourselves, they're actually accessible to anyone. Now, we may not be aware of the information, but it doesn't mean that it's not freely accessible and available. So, in this idea of being in a more transparent world, all the information would be accessible, right? Which sounds familiar, right? Sounds like Google, sounds like the internet. That's the external version of our internal technology. So anyway, I actually think that privacy would still be possible as an experience, and here's why. Because just because you're aware of everyone's thoughts and feelings doesn't mean that you're going to be processing through your frame, your moment, doesn't mean that you're going to be giving your attention to all the information that you have accessible to you. That's the way we live right now. Our brain is literally filtering out billions and trillions of bits of information because it's not relevant to how we're defining ourselves in this moment, our intentions in this moment, the relevancy of this moment. And so in that sense, I feel like things will be organized by synchronicity. Synchronicity is just being in sync with who you're being. And so I feel like not everything will be relevant, and so there will still be this pure version of privacy. When I say pure, I mean like, just because it's sacred, just because it's like, but that's far different than the privacy that we want, but really it's as a result of us hiding. Right? In hiding, as I said before, why would we want to hide any aspect of ourselves from someone, or even from ourselves? The number one reason is judgment, and judgment is the number one reason why things go into our subconscious and become that's another way to describe our dark side, right? It's like you can't see it. The things we judge, we don't want to see, and we don't want to be seen. And so that's why the subconscious is so powerful. But here's the thing, is as we bring more love, acceptance, forgiveness, as we awaken spiritually, if you want to look at it that way, then it's like our subconscious is becoming conscious, and we're becoming like these super conscious beings. Hence the title of the video, Accessing Superconsciousness, right? So privacy will still be possible in that sense. The other thing that I think is interesting about this idea is that on one hand, like if we look at somebody that's angry, for example, or in rage, and maybe we might be appalled by them, or we might feel threatened by them, like they're going to hurt us or something like that, and where it might be our inclination to react, which isn't it interesting, just on a side note, that if someone's hurting or bleeding in the street, that we'll run to help them, just human nature. But if someone's angry, we're not like, hey, let me help you out. You know what I mean? Oh, I feel for you. Most people are not. So, but the thing about that is, if everything's transparent, then we would not just see the surface layer expression of anger, what we would see, because we would be looking not with our perception. We would be looking with our spiritual eyes, the eyes of our heart. We would see that this person is really saying, I want to feel empowered, I want to feel safe, I want love. So I really think that we would have a radically different way that we even respond to people, because we would see the truth of what's really going on. And so that's why, like, to the mind that might get terrified by the idea rather than relieved by it, I don't think it would create more chaos, right? And I think that we would another thing that I think would happen is that if we would be more aware of the effect of our words and our thoughts towards another, in a positive and in a negative way. And in a positive way, it's like sometimes we think that giving a kind word to somebody or things of this nature may not be making that much of an impact, but we would be able to actually see the impact, which would promote more giving. It would promote more like, oh wow, that person over there needs help. That's the other thing, is when we're judging ourselves and isolating ourselves and separating ourselves, a lot of times we need help, we need support, we need assistance, and we think it's not there, but we're blinded. We can't see it when we're in judgment, when we're in fear, when we're isolating and separating ourselves. So we would see all of these resources just walking around, walking by us, all the connections, resources, all these amazing things that sometimes we're going after and sometimes we're thinking don't exist. Those would reveal themselves to us too. I also think there would be a tremendous sense of relief, because it'd be like, oh my God, I'm not the only one feeling this way. I'm not the only one thinking this thing or thinking this way. I'm not the only one having these thoughts. So I think overall it would be an amazing idea. But here's the thing I said in the last video. It's happening anyway. Not because I said it's happening. I mean, I am kind of making a prophetic claim here in a sense. But it's happening. And if you even look at the evolution of the word transparency and how it's infiltrating into personal and spiritual development spaces, you know, people who are in their conscious evolution. It's been doing that for a few years now. But even in the business culture, everything's about being transparent. Even in marketing, it's about transparency. It's happening. Social media, all of these external things are mimicking what's happening on our internal evolution. And I'm saying get on the bandwagon with it voluntarily and not be forced into it. The example of being forced into it, it's like a corporation that has untruths, which means it's an untruth is an energy that's out of alignment with nature. It's out of alignment with truth, like lies, manipulation, things like that. Corporations that aren't transparent, or that weren't, and that were operating on these more contracted energies, which are out of alignment with the luminous spirit that we are, they seem to be falling down overnight. But it didn't happen overnight. The virus is infiltrating beneath the surface in the subconscious, like, oh, everything's fine, we can get away with this, oh, we don't have to pay attention to that, oh, that's for those folks. But then evolution happens, it hits a tipping point, and boom, the corporation seems to go down overnight, because truth prevails. Eventually it prevails. It has much more influence and much more power. So it's the same thing. That's an example of a corporation, but it's the same thing with the human body. It's like, if you're resisting your true self in the form of fear, judgment, not being yourself, then you may think that, oh, okay, no harm, whatever. Eventually, enough resistance, then you start to get sick. Now that's a manifestation. But it started happening way before you got sick. And if you keep going, then you get a disease. If you keep going, you're probably going to die. So what I'm saying is that the flip side of that is that truth, this idea of truth, transparency, which really is an energy of love, all right? It's happening anyway, and it's evidence everywhere that things are becoming more transparent. And lastly, going back to the whole superconscious thing, is that our subconscious, which is the things that we've held in our subconscious, it's like we're growing and maturing, and as we bring more acceptance and love and forgiveness and all these things that really we all are inclined towards, the truth, all these things, like our spirits are calling us forth towards them. What's happening is, as we're becoming more conscious, we're having access to what's already happening anyway, which is the superconscious mind, which is this state of oneness where all information's free. And that ability to access information, that ability, like telepathy, all these different things, to the current version of ourselves would seem like almost superhuman. But really, they're natural. They're so natural, they're supernatural. So we're really awakening to who we really are, and it's happening at a certain pace, and it's accelerated right now. So transparency, get on the transparency bandwagon. You know, not to mention it's intimate. Your state of receiving and ability to receive is so much higher. And yeah, the more you're willing to see, the more you see. Life reveals itself to you. And as I said before in another video about telepathy, what happens is, as you expand your consciousness and become more like the quality of your spirit, which is luminous and transparent, and more like the quality of your natural state, which is love, then you're just becoming aware of what's already happening. All these conversations that are happening on another level of consciousness, all these ideas and inventions that we're all co-creating on in ways that we don't see in physical reality, we see that we're not separate. We are not separate from one another. So transparency reveals that. And it will accelerate your evolution. I think that's where I started the other video. You want to accelerate your personal spiritual evolution, just decide to become more transparent. Decide it voluntarily. All right. Oren Harris, signing off for now. Peace.